Glazov gang. I am your guest host, Michael Hausum. Most clearly not Jamie Glazov. First of all, because I'm probably about 1.5 feet taller and I don't say words like "a" like Jamie does. But I'm joined tonight with a very fun group of people. In fact, we had started out this morning on a little Facebook thread. There's been a lot of bad blood between two of our guests, and I think we've probably gone through most of it. We'll just have to check and see. But Jamie, it was a privilege to ask me to guest host again for you, and I thank you. So down on the far end, returning from last week as well, is writer and Shillman Fellow at the Horowitz Center is Mark Tapson. Mark, it is great to have you here.
Great to be back.
And sitting next to Mark is a fellow Orange County resident, and we spent a couple hours fairly close to one another on the 405 coming up here.
Yes, we did.
Writer, radio show host, and also you said social media maven.
Yes, sir.
I'm not sure what social media maven.
It means absolutely nothing.
Oh, okay.
But I'm very happy to be that, and I'm self-designated. So just go ahead. Tell me I'm not a maven.
I didn't know if it was social media maiden or maven,
No.
and maybe that's an important distinction.
Perhaps
Wait,
so.
Victoria,
Perhaps so.
welcome. And then lastly, immediately to my right is screenwriter, novelist, contributor to Pajamas Media and National Review Online, Michael Walsh. And so I do hope that the bad blood between the two of you was solved earlier today, or is it not?
Between Tapson and me?
Yeah.
No, this will go on forever.
I thought it was between me and you, actually.
Well, no, that's
This is going to be a great show.
That's
This
a
is going to
different
be
thing.
great.
Oh.
You know, if we're going to joke around like that, there are just a couple of minor things that I needed to address. I should have done so beforehand. And I'm going to read them carefully because this has to do with our attorneys, and it's important things. Your question earlier, Victoria, the restraining order that you had out against me.
Yes, I was wondering about that.
The second we stop taping, the restraining order is in full effect, and I can be nowhere within a mile's distance from you.
Okay.
And I know that was really important.
It was important to me. I'm glad you clarified that.
Not a problem. Now, Tapson, this is a little bit more of an issue for you. Yes, our attorneys did misspell the words nudity and pole dancing and disrobing.
I keep telling them.
I know. Here's the thing, is regardless of how we spell it, you can't do any of those things.
What am I here for?
I'm really sorry. And the grammatical corrections were really important, but it wasn't me.
Grammar's important.
Victoria thought it was a great idea. It was Jamie. And no nudity from Tapson. I'm positive that's what you said, right? And then, of course, Michael, being kind of the National Review big rock star that you are.
That's true. Yeah.
It is important. We didn't say that Emily Ratowski would be here for you. We said that we would attempt to get her here for you.
You fell for it?
Well, I did. You made every good effort to do this.
I did, and I just know that when you walked in the door, you go right into your green room, and you know the M&Ms were sorted the way you wanted, all of those things, and you're like, "Where's M?"
Yeah, exactly.
She told me earlier she couldn't make it.
Oh, is that right? Because I was just told earlier that, hey, leave me alone. I still have an hour.
Well, you guys can make it up to me next time I'm back.
That you'll have to take up with Jamie if there is a next time.
Not really.
All right. Well, joking aside, yeah, and seriously, no joking. You need to keep your clothes on. I just want to make sure.
Again, why am I here?
I'll make sure he does that.
That's very important to me. Maybe the first topic I want to talk about, there's still a little bit of funny engaged in that. Just before we went to tape, our president gave a stunning speech. It's funny, I had two different bookies that I was working with, knowing that we were going to be taping roughly 2.5 hours. I laid money down on both that he would still be talking. And one guy was unable to lay the bet off, the other one did, and I made a little bit on that. So the president actually did finish his speech. He talked for about 20 minutes, primarily about ISIL, ISIS, whatever you want to talk about. First question, did all three of you listen to what he had to say?
I did actually. I usually have so much of a visceral reaction to his voice and appearance that I just try to read up later on it, but tonight I actually tuned in.
Well, I appreciate you doing the homework with that. Now, how about the both of you guys?
I listened live, listened to post-game comments. made my own comments at the same time into my phone while driving.
Or shouting at the radio.
Or shouting and screaming.
It was remarkable, wasn't it? Shouting at the radio. Did you know you were safer?
What's that?
Did you know the United States is safer now?
I'm thrilled to hear that. Yeah,
Yeah, because the president said so.
Well, the reason I heard the speech is because it's Los Angeles, and I was in my car, so I was a captive audience.
Right.
And it was either that or listen to a Baroque trumpet concerto on KUSC, so I opted for the president, just because I'm an American.
I didn't even realize that there could have been a Baroque concerto to listen to as an option, because I certainly would have done that.
Well, it was a tough listen because not seeing him, it's harder to get a sense of whether he was engaged in it, whether he cared. But it sounded very passionless or dispassionate to me on the radio. I don't know, did you see the...
I did.
You
I
did.
saw probably half of it visually.
You know, I listened, and I have to say, I thought he sounded more passionate than he has about a lot of things in a long, long time. But he said these wonderful, more passionate, just a little bit, you know, from bloodless to maybe a little bit of a pulse. And he talked about the fact that he's doing the exact same thing that he is always going to do, but he's trotting it out in front of the American people because he heard from the political opinion polls that people are not buying what he's selling and they're not picking up when he's throwing down. And they decided that they needed to have him in front of people saying the exact same thing,
Yeah,
which is to say his ISIS strategy has not changed.
Can anyone remember what exactly did he say?
I can't, but I wrote it down just to say that I know.
That's cheating.
He actually bragged about removing troops from Iraq, which of course created the vacuum out of which ISIS blossomed. I mean, that is just truly amazing.
Yeah, but here's the thing,
and he
though.
called it a success. I mean, what?
He ran on that. He had to remove the troops. So that...
But to say that it's a success today,
True.
that is just, I mean, that is hilarious.
Well,
It is
that's
pathetic.
Barry having it both ways. Barry's always right, so whether this happened or that happened, he's always right.
Right.
So if you have a question and a conflict, see rule number 1.
Barry's always right.
Barry's always right.
That's
He,
right.
he
So-
did use the word strategy several times so that the American public is clear that he does have a strategy.
Yeah, but what is the strategy?
Well, that's unclear.
Yeah, okay.
That's a really important point.
He actually did. He actually did lay out 4 points of his strategy, and they basically consisted of, you know, the United States is leading a multinational coalition,
Which he never named.
Which he never named. He was
never
very vague
named
about
one
that.
coalition partner.
And that we would be leading this coalition from behind. He didn't quite put it that way, but he
No
said
American combat troops.
no troops on the ground.
No troops on the ground.
Multinational coalition.
Well, we're sending money, and
No, we're
that's about
redoubling.
it.
The money part, that part I did notice. He used the word, we're redoubling.
Can you imagine what slush fund that's going to be?
Well,
I
you
can't
know,
and then we're going to work with moderates in Syria.
Yeah.
Oh my! Are you kidding me?
Yeah, name
Who
one.
are the moderates?
We're gonna be arming
as Andy
Syrian
McCarthy
rebels.
puts it, the moderate beheaders.
I think
what
that's
are we going to do with that?
that's a, you know, they hook you up to a lie detector test and they ask you, are you a moderate?
Have you ever been a moderate?
Have you ever known a moderate?
Isn't that amazing?
Well, the thing that was interesting to me, the 4 points that he gave, to me were like really super mushy. And Marcus, you totally correctly point out, a week and a half ago he said he had no strategy whatsoever, and the world caved in on him. So, you know, they all sat in the room and they're like, okay, there's one thing we have to be able to say is that we have a strategy. So the 4 things, the support and the airstrikes and all that, to me, that was just like boring Phil. What was interesting to me, and I wrote them down and maybe we can play around with them a little bit, some of the statements that he made as kind of the preamble, the setup for the thing, the 4 points, everybody kind of knew. I mean, the number of trial balloons that came out today for that, it was like, you know, there was nothing surprising. The first one, I think, Victoria, you first mentioned America was safer.
We're safer, yeah. And did you know that these radical Islamists have nothing to do with Islam?
Nothing at all.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Shocking to me.
Stunning.
ISIL is not Islamic.
Even though it says Islamic State in
the
its
name.
title. What's interesting about the
They
left,
labeled themselves.
and especially Obama, is that they refuse to accept people who come up and say, "Hi, I'm Mike Walsh," and they say, "No, you're not. You're Fred Thompson." You go, "No, seriously, you have nothing to do with Mike. You are Fred Thompson," and it's like arguing with an insane person.
Right.
So why he feels it's important that to assure I don't know,
Care.
that ISIL, ISIS, whatever, has nothing to do with Islam when the name is in the title is hard for me to grasp. I can't wrap my mind around this particular tick that he has.
Well, Kerry's been doing the same thing
Yes.
lately, saying that ISIL, ISIS, whatever he uses, is a violent, how did he put it? It is a hateful ideology that has nothing to do with Islam. And they trot this out a lot, this fact that they have a hateful ideology, but they never specify, the administration never specifies what the ideology is.
Right.
Well, he did,
It's
Mark.
Islamic,
In
but
this
they
time-
won't say that.
What he said, and I had that written down, is that they are exploiting grievances for their own personal
Oh,
gain.
of course.
So it's all about
Exploiting
social
grievances.
justice.
See,
It's
that's
a social justice.
Exactly.
Exactly. That's
Then shouldn't we be
exactly right.
supporting them? I mean, I thought
That's
social
pure
justice.
Marxist talk.
Right.
Absolutely.
The legitimate aspirations and grievances of the blah, blah, blah. Remember, I'm older than all you guys combined. But I've been hearing
yeah.
the same, by a long shot, I've been hearing the same song and dance from the left communist side. It's just they use phrases, and he regurgitates them because he's sort of the next generation of that kind of Marxist thinker. It's really quite sad. But
What was he like as a man, by the way?
Who, Barry? Or
Carl.
Marx? Oh, yeah.
I'm just assuming.
A great drinking buddy. Well, it's actually another little known fact, since I'm everywhere simultaneously, much like God himself. I went to high school in Honolulu when Obama was born and was being pushed around in his pram on the University of Hawaii. So it's very likely that I saw Stanley and the light worker around our campus. But I grew up in the Marine Corps. So when you talk strategy and tactics, they have very specific meanings.
Yes.
Meanings. It's not, well, I have a strategy. Well, we're going to do this, we're going to get a coalition, and we're going to bomb them. That's not a strategy. Reagan said it best, we win, they lose. That's the overall strategic, that's the objective and the goal. Strategy is something very different, and then tactics are how we win each battle. Strategy is the number of battles. And
He doesn't understand that.
He doesn't get that.
Get that
But
at
there's
all.
nobody in this administration that understands the military. None.
Right.
If-
Well,
if you-
Including Kerry, Mr. Silver Star winner.
right.
Yeah.
To me, it's like mochachinos at an internet cafe, or they're sitting around a undergraduate dorm room throwing crap up against the wall as an idea.
Yeah, it's just random stuff they heard in class.
right.
Yeah.
Now, Mark, you were just going to say
Yeah,
something.
you
brilliant.
can't have a strategy if you can't acknowledge what the enemy's ideology is.
Right.
If you're focused on ISIS as an isolated affiliate, as he likes to call it, just as he used to refer to Al-Qaeda, if you're just focusing on these groups and saying they're terrorist groups that are isolated like this, and you don't connect them to their ideology, then you have no strategy, or you have a strategy that is doomed. And we'll
Right.
just keep facing one head of the Hydra after another, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, on, and it will
And-
never end.
Bush got a lot of trouble because he kept saying it was a war on terror, which is a tactic vis-a-vis what he should have been saying, which is the war on Islamofascism, which he said one time and one time only, and he was taken to task for it because he actually named the enemy's ideology, and that was all she wrote. So
Right.
nobody else dares speak its name.
It to me, it constantly comes up in my mind, thinking about what both of you were just saying there, is, we're so careful when the religious thing comes up, right?
Right.
That, because it's somebody's faith, there's a preciousness to it. There's a reverence that is owed. But when we're talking about enemies, that if they could, they would behead the four of us in a second. So let's set aside whatever the religious thing is and look at what they're trying to do. To compare that to what was going on in the late 30s, early 40s in Germany, to use the same kind of language. Well, the National Socialist Party is a unique subset of a German, Austrian background people that is not representative of the German people itself. And even, if you started to describe the Third Reich and the leaders of that in similar terms, everybody's head would explode in a minute and say, no, they're evil and they need to be destroyed.
Well, the Nazis
Period.
never commanded more than 10% of the German population as members of the National Socialist German Workers' Party.
Right.
I just want to make sure the socialist and workers got in there. For the fans scoring at home, that's a leftist party.
There are fans actually scoring at home.
I know they are.
You can print out
It's
the
like,
little thing.
It's like bowling. It's awesome.
Exactly.
But the point is, in the military, you never judge your opponent by what his intentions are. You judge him by what he's capable of doing. Okay? So it's all about, do they have the capability to saw off a journalist's head when they got him captive? Yes. Set off a dirty bomb in New York? Maybe. Set off a nuclear device somewhere? I don't know, but that's why we have an intelligence community. But wishful thinking about, well, maybe they don't really mean their own name is crazy.
No.
Crazy.
And that's what we have, crazy.
Right. I just wrote down a word that you said it. To me, just connected a bunch of dots. Because that's the kind of genius you bring to the planet
Well,
Earth.
I use a lot of big words.
I know,
Yeah,
and I'm like
my
writing some
vocabulary's
of these
stunning.
things down.
Yeah.
This one is only 3 syllables.
Oh.
I can cover the 3
That's
syllables.
a short one for me.
I'm sure it is. But it did connect some dots. You said the word intentions. That you can't, in a military conflict, that you can't judge based on intentions. And it was like a light just went off. The left and the leader of the Democratic Party and the President of the United States, it's all about intentions. I mean, facts and results mean nothing
Right.
to the progressive left. It's all about intentions.
It's all words.
It's all so
They-
that
they live in a
the
fantasy.
dichotomy might just be right there.
Yeah, I think that's part of the problem is they don't think realistically, they think abstractly. So they believe, and Obama...
Like Emily Ratajkowski is going to come see you later.
Ratajkowski. I gotta get her name.
Oh, sorry.
They intend to kill the bad guys, but they really don't know how to go about it.
Right.
But their intentions are
Well,
really
what
good.
does degrade and destroy mean?
Yeah.
How are you going to do that? Let's say if we're landing at D-Day, our objective is to go to Berlin and kill Hitler.
Right.
And hang all their leaders and destroy their thing.
We're not degrading the Fordaments at Omaha Beach.
Well, when we got to the Rhine, we didn't say, well, we pushed them back over the Rhine, okay, go home. The problem is we've had feckless leadership in the military and civilian leadership since Vietnam. It's been, let's declare victory and pull out.
Let's let Saddam have his air power, and let's leave him in Baghdad. Let's
Yeah.
not go get him.
I don't think we should entirely make this partisan because I think the Bushes blew this. I think George Herbert Walker Bush blew not only the first Gulf War but the end of the Cold War. I happen to have been on the ground in the middle of the Cold War, so I watched that. And I think George Bush did a very bad job by attacking the Iraqis. I mean, there is no such place as Iraq, but the Sunni the government of Iraq, when we knew that the problem came from Saudi.
Right.
It didn't come from Iran. It didn't come from Iraq. It came from Saudi Arabia.
Right.
But they weren't going to attack the royal house of Saud, so they attacked Daddy's, the job Daddy didn't finish.
Right.
We really, I think, as conservatives, we have to be fair and realize that it took two to tango into this particular morass.
But there was a vacuum in Iraq at the time, and I don't presume to
Well,
know
it-
more
it
than you
goes
do about
back
it. But I do know
further-
that there were terrorists in Iraq at the time, Zarq Hawid being among them, and the Ansar al-Islam folks in
Sure.
in the north. And so, yeah, well, there were people there. So it wasn't devoid of terrorists.
No, but it just didn't seem to have anything to do with what happened here 13 years ago tomorrow.
Right.
Which was an attack launched by mostly Saudis on the American, on New York and,
Right.
and Washington.
Now, I think, Mark, I think you wanted to jump in there, and I know perhaps part of it is your professional experience when you said the word degrading. But I know that
He was
in a
right there,
previous
wasn't he?
life,
I
there
woke
was-
up when he said the word degrading.
You're like,
I'm a
can't
little
really-
confused by the word degrading. I mean, I don't know whether that means we plan to force them to dress in drag.
Yeah,
Or,
maybe that's it.
That would be culturally insensitive.
but at least
Have a
degrading.
bacon cheeseburger? I mean, what's
I mean,
degrading?
at least degrading is better than the word he used earlier in the week, which was manage, that we're going to manage
Yeah.
the evil that is ISIS. Managing evil is something that I
A fool's errand, I think.
I think that's an oxymoron maybe somehow.
Right, no question.
That's
Now-
how they think. They think that they can talk their way out of any
Oh, sure.
Yes.
anything.
We're so clever.
And here we are.
And here
Well,
we are.
part of the rhetorical game with that was another thing I had written down, is part of rhetoric is setting up something to bounce your genius off of. And the one line that I wrote down that I thought was amazing that he said, and he acknowledged it as if it was, well, this is going to be very helpful to all of you poor people listening. He said, well, you know, every trace of evil cannot be removed. As if,
Really?
I know. It was like,
Progressive
I
heads
better write
explode.
this down. Every trace?
Every.
I mean, I have an ex-wife that I'm trying to remove. And that can't be done, right?
No. But you can always hope, right?
I
mean, it's hope and change with this
It
guy.
just, it's interesting to me that, I mean, this has been something that has been talked about for so long. And throwing in little things to make him look smart, like, are you kidding me?
To qualify it, to pad it, so it doesn't make it look like, oh, well, you know, I qualified that. So if it really comes back to haunt me in some form or fashion, who knows how that would happen?
Well,
He at least he used the weasel words to get around
But
it.
that whole speech was padding. He didn't say anything.
He didn't say anything.
We're going to stop. Who didn't think he was going to say, we're going to stop these guys, right?
Well,
That's
actually,
it.
I wasn't sure he was going to say that. Honestly.
It depends on
Yeah,
your
that's-
definition of stop.
stop,
is.
and-
Oh, we did get a job.
What the strategy?
Were you just gobsmacked at the jobs report? He gave us a jobs report and said we were doing great on Ebola. I just thought, wait.
no,
wait.
everything's hunky-dory, and at the end, it's, you know, flag waving.
Yeah,
God
flag
bless
waving.
America.
I was kind
Right.
of glad he flagged that, though.
Very disappointing speech, I think, and indicative of the kind of administration this has been.
Okay, well, let's change the topic then,
Do
because I think you put a perfect little bullet point on it. But we're not going to leave the administration as a topic. I actually brought something here, a little bit of show and tell. I hope that's okay. I have a letter here. It's addressed to me. Oh, I probably shouldn't show my address. And maybe you guys have received this kind of thing before. It is from the Department of the Treasury, the Internal Revenue Service. In my case, my internal revenue guy is in Holtzville, New York. Going to say hello to him real quick. I have unpaid taxes due of $925.58. You can see that right there.
Did you not sign up for Obamacare or something? What's wrong with you?
Well, you know, if you've ever received a letter from the IRS before, there's not a single agency across the alphabet soup across the country that doesn't create the kind of terror. Because all I see when the thing comes is I see Michael Hausum, which I'm in love with looking at that.
That's great.
Obviously.
So you're off to
That
a
got
good
your
start.
I'm like, hey, that's me. And then I see the thing at the top that says Department of the Treasury, and I think, okay, I'm in huge trouble, right?
Naked.
So let's talk about, in fact, Michael, right before we came on, you mentioned the newest thing that happened today. And there's a few things going on with the IRS.
Well, the commissioner of the IRS was on in front of Congress today, and as I referred to him on Facebook, the space alien slash lizard person, thus proving the theory of David Icke's in The Greatest Secret about how the world's really run by giant lizards in human form.
Oh, no.
No, that's a whole other topic, but it's awesome. Anyway,
We're not going to get to the
this
lizards.
particular lizard guy was in front of Congress, and he came up with the deathless statement that at the IRS we try to follow the law whenever possible, wherever possible. And
Isn't that nice?
this was met by stunned reaction from the congressman saying, I hope you follow the law all the time.
Like, in fact, I'm
Yeah.
going to do that.
Yeah.
I am going to pay
Right.
this
If-
$925
However possible.
Wherever possible.
wherever possible.
At some point in the future.
In the future.
If possible.
God,
So you've just got an out.
I owe you drinks at this point that I can spend $925 on.
I'm going to quote Michael, actually, as you're fond of saying, this is a criminal organization. I mean, the left is a criminal organization, and the IRS is evidence of that. And under Obama, we've seen the political weaponizing of the IRS as well. I mean, it's
Right.
an organization that ought to try a little bit harder to follow the law. I mean, I try to follow the law wherever possible. You'd think the IRS should be held to a slightly higher standard, but
I saw a new acronym, the Internal Revenge Service. I think that pretty much says it.
That's
Right.
pretty good, because remember the Obama motto is revenge. You know,
Yes, that's
get
right.
even is
Yeah.
that's his appeal to all of the Democrat groups who feel historically marginalized. He wants them to get even with whoever.
Absolutely.
Whitey, the man, Republicans,
He told-
conservatives.
I want to
Christians.
get even with Whitey.
I wanted, me
Oh.
too, yeah.
He told,
That's
he told
a
an
huge
Oregon
deal.
congressman one time, an Oregon congressman who divulged details of a meeting with Obama, who said that Obama had told him, "Don't think we're not keeping score, brother." When he didn't do it.
And we're
the
back to the
president
social
wanted.
justice
And
issue.
And we're back to
Yeah.
social justice.
Exactly.
Well, the story about the IRS, I mean, I didn't know about the try to keep the law deal.
Yeah.
I actually wrote a thing about it today at IJ Review. I don't know if you guys heard about it. The Department of Justice staffer that accidentally called Daryl Ice's office.
Oh,
Wonderful.
isn't that wonderful?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so if you don't know the story on this, Daryl Issa is head of the budget of the. I don't know what the name of the committee is. Daryl Issa is head of the committee that's doing the IRS
Oversight.
investigation.
Oversight.
The House Oversight
House
Committee.
Oversight.
Right. On Friday evening, a little after 5 o'clock, his communication staff received a phone call from someone that self-identified as a Department of Justice staffer. And then he explained that the Department of Justice was in the process of returning documents based upon subpoena to the House committee, that they were about to deliver those documents to the House. However, what they wanted to do is obtain specific permission to take a few of those documents and release them to selected media folks in order to kind of get out in front of, and this is what the guy said, before the majority does. And the guys on the phone are stunned to listen to this request. And so they then respond saying, why don't you go ahead and send those things over so we can take a look at it? The guy put him on hold. 4 minutes later, he came back on the phone and said, we've kind of changed tactic. We're not going to go ahead and try to do that. However, it was really nice to have this conversation. It's really important for us here at Justice to have open and clear lines of communication. And then they got off the phone, right? So then, and I'll be brief about this. The next thing then, Daryl Issa sent a letter to Eric Holder explaining all of that, saying, you know what? We don't believe this guy at all. He thought he was calling Elijah Cummings.
Yeah.
And he thought he was going to get permission.
Who's the ranking minority member?
Who's the ranking
on the
minority
committee.
member,
Yeah.
to actually throw up clouds in this investigation. So ISA is asking for documentation of every single conversation that has happened, the dates and the topics of conversation about it, and he's giving Holder a week to respond.
And
Well,
he used pretty strong language in that letter, too. I just want to read a couple of
Please do, yeah.
sections. He said, I'm disturbed by this apparently long-standing collaboration between the Obama administration and Cummings' staff to obfuscate and prejudice the committee's work through under-the-table coordination. So, he didn't hold anything back there, and he also said it's a highly partisan and combative approach that shows a disregard for the independent investigative prerogatives of Congress and a deliberate attempt to influence the course of a congressional investigation. So I'm eager to see Holder's response to this letter.
Oh my gosh.
Well, it's like the scene in Bonfire of the Vanities when Sherman thinks he's calling his girlfriend, but he actually calls his wife by
Yes,
accident.
accident.
Oops, and then he has to
Fight
kind
a
of
penny for every
backfill.
time that
That's
happens.
exactly the
I
same
know,
situation.
especially when I was a bond trader and I killed a guy with my Mercedes, right? Totally.
Yeah, there's no shame with these people. Everything is political. Everything is tactical. Again, we go back to strategy and tactics. They don't really have a strategy anymore. They just want to, play out the 2.5 years left. But everything must be tactical. And as Mark was nice enough to quote David Kahane saying, the Democrats are a criminal organization masquerading as a political party. That's all they are.
You know David Kahane?
I do. He's a good friend of mine. Yeah.
Because I am friends with that guy on Facebook.
A lot of
Never
people
met
are.
him.
They never meet him though. He's
Like, who's David Kahane?
I'm like Superman.
And how do I find him?
I've got a message for him.
Yeah.
So if you could talk to me afterward.
Yeah, but that's the point, is that it's all tactical, and so the Republicans don't know. They don't think on that level of constant duplicity, and that's why they lose, among other things.
What I don't understand also is that Holder's only spoken, or their minions who are doing the actual investigation of the IRS, They only spoken to Lois Lerner, didn't they? That was months and months and months ago. How many other people have they deposed? We don't know. It's
Well,
not
we
that
do
many.
know
They
there
have an
was some
incredible
news
lack
about
of
that.
intellectual curiosity about this whole thing.
There was some news on Monday. An IRS official notified the House committee that 5 more folks that they've been specifically asking questions about,
Just vanished.
their files happened to vanish as well.
Yeah.
I have to say something about that because on one level, on Judicial Watch, I happened to speak to Chris Farrell over at Judicial Watch the other day, and he says this whole idea about the hard drives disappearing and something happening to them, it's a red herring. He says because there are backup systems on backup systems, and then furthermore, when I was able to get an audience with John Koskinen, the now director of the IRS, he told me that there are backups, there are hard copies of so many of these emails as well. So they got them. There's the whole hard drive situation is just bunk.
By the end of the Obama administration, it's going to look like the end of Scarface, the original Scarface, with Paul Muni when he grabs his guns and he get me covered. They're just going to stonewall.
They're just going to destroy
until the end.
Well, that actually,
Say hello.
there's a question that comes to my mind for those of us that read about it as opposed to experienced it. The IRS was involved with Nixon's downfall.
In part, yes.
What level?
You look at me like I actually remember this.
Because he
but
tried.
I do figure that you remember
I do, yeah.
it.
He thought about using the FBI
Yeah.
to go, or the IRS, and really doing some of the dirty tricks against some of his political foes. He talked about it, and nobody would do it.
And they didn't do it. That's the point.
Didn't do it, and
Yeah.
that was when somebody did something right. Constitution, everything was upheld, if you will. That was the good news story out of Watergate, if there was
But
one.
I think that was even mentioned in the articles of impeachment, that he was politicizing departments of the government that should be apolitical. Or
Yeah,
was
guess what?
attempting to.
And this, as Mark properly points out, we have weaponized the government against the people. We are living in tyranny. That is what's going on. Gown up. It's happening.
Right. Yeah. There was even the couple more things with week. I don't know if you saw this also, that it became clearly obvious that it was all run out of D.C. Part of what, and this may have been what the guy from Judicial Watch was talking to you about. They have emails from the head attorney to Lois Lerner saying that any of the non-exempt approvals must come through the IRS's head attorney as well as Lois Lerner. That was all run out of D.C. I mean, it's the idea that the president, and this is the part, this is so upsetting, that there is not a smidgen of corruption, that it was all done in a centralized office in Cincinnati is so, I mean, it's now completely and totally proven.
Does anybody believe a word they say at this point? Seriously.
No.
No. Well, here's the thing, though, Michael. It's one thing to not believe a word they say. It's another thing to have documented proof that what they said was a total lie. Like, I don't ever believe a thing that Mark has to say.
No. Well, that's,
Right?
That's a given.
I mean, just because I've met him.
Because I've left a paper trail.
But if I had actual proof, then people wouldn't think I was nuts.
Well, there's a famous Hollywood anecdote. A writer's sitting there with the producer's giving him a line. The writer says, "You're lying to me. You're lying to me. You're lying to me." And the producer says, "I know I am, but listen to me anyway." That's what we're at.
That's exactly right.
Yes.
That's exactly right. All right. Well, on that note, from the brilliant Michael Walsh, I want to thank you guys. Mark Tapson, Victoria Taft, Michael Walsh, thank you for coming.
Thanks for having us.
So we hit two of the big topics of the day. The first one being the president's I almost fell asleep saying the word, stunning speech, where he said things, and I think we agreed that he said things that were not surprising.
Except you talked about Ebola.
He did, which doesn't have anything to do with what he was there to talk about,
That's correct.
as well as the IRS. And if we were to take a quick poll, are either of these things going to have any impact over the next few weeks on the national debate on whether or not Beyonce's new video wrapped in saran wrap gets more ratings or not. Do you think these things are going to actually matter?
The lofos will go for it. The low information voters.
But basically not. I mean, the sides, everyone knows what they think now. It's not. He's not going to change any more minds.
Right.
We've hit that part of the presidency.
I think you're right. Well, anyway, this is Michael Hausum sitting in for Jamie Glazov. Thank you so much for watching the Glazov game.